New technology, new tools. These are times when you would do a ground test from the mat. You will do several ground tests to show some of the features you might see. You will also check system configuration to verify hardware and software part numbers. A write-up shows that the left engine switched to alternate mode during the last flight. As part of the fault isolation procedure, you need to do a check of the probe heat relay drive circuit of the P2T2 probe. You need to do this system test from the mat. Do the system test. You can use the information icon to learn more about the features of the test selection dialog box. Then select the green arrow to continue. Instructions for each step show on the display. Follow the instructions. The P2T2 probe is part of the engine fuel and control system in Chapter 73. To show the list of tests for the P2T2 probe, you need to identify the ATA chapter. To show the list of tests for the P2T2 probe, you need to identify the ATA chapter. To show the list of tests for the P2T2 probe, you need to identify the ATA chapter. To show the list of tests for the P2T2 probe, you need to identify the ATA chapter. To show the list of tests for the P2T2 probe, you need to identify the ATA chapter. To show the list of tests for the P2T2 probe, you need to identify the ATA chapter. To show the list of tests for the P2T2 probe, you need to identify the ATA chapter. To show the list of tests for the P2T2 probe, you need to identify the ATA chapter. To show the list of tests for the P2T2 probe, you need to identify the ATA chapter. To show the list of tests for the P2T2 probe, you need to identify the ATA chapter. To show the list of tests for the P2T2 probe, you need to identify the ATA chapter. To show the list of tests for the P2T2 probe, you need to identify the ATA chapter. To show the list of tests for the P2T2 probe, you need to identify the ATA chapter. To show the list of tests for the P2T2 probe, you need to identify the ATA chapter. To show the list of tests for the P2T2 probe, you need to identify the ATA chapter. Before you begin the test, you can try the selections at the bottom of the dialog box to see what they do. Then continue when you are ready. You must meet these preconditions before you can test the probe heat relay drive circuit. If there were no preconditions for a ground test, would the preconditions dialog box show? You will always see the preconditions dialog box because it also has the test description. Let's look at the preconditions. The preconditions are met. Do the test. You can use the information icon to learn more about the features of this test display. Then select the green arrow to continue. You can try the selections to see what they do. Then continue the test. Read the warning and continue the test. The mat shows the test condition. If you need to quit before the test is complete, you would select Stop Test. You completed the system ground test and it passed. The EEC probe heat relay drive circuit is OK. You finish the fault isolation process and repair the fault. Next, you will operate both the mat and other controls to complete a ground test. On this airplane, you replaced the auto brake valve module. Do the LRU replacement test. You need to start a new test. Begin the test procedure. You must make sure that these preconditions are met before you start the test. The preconditions are met. Continue the test. Read the warning and continue. This ground test also requires these conditions. Let's look at them. These conditions are now met. You can go on. Oops! The selector indicates that it is not set to RTO. The selector is set to RTO. Since you are sure that you set the selector, continue. The test cannot operate because it found a problem. Find out why the test failed. Find information on why the test failed. You isolate the fault to the auto brake selector. You replace the auto brake selector. You are ready to do the auto brake valve module replacement test again. Start the test again. These preconditions are still met. Warnings still show even when you repeat a test. These conditions are still true. During the LRU test, the test displays appear automatically. The LRU passed the ground test. The test found a problem with an interface component and stopped. When you replaced the component and restarted the test, the auto brake valve module passed the test. Next, you will see what happens if you stop a test before it is complete. As part of scheduled maintenance, you need to do a system test of the mode control panel. This is an interactive ground test. You will make sure each switch on the MCP operates correctly. Begin the test procedure now. Begin the test procedure. You must make sure that these preconditions are met before you start the test. The preconditions are met. Continue the test. Good. Now start the test. The test is operating. For the rest of this test, you must use the MCP. Follow the directions in the dialog box. Follow MAT instructions to do the interactive part of this test next. Push all the lighted switches on the MCP. Make sure that all switch lights are off before you answer the question. Did all of the switch lights on the MCP go off?
We have to tow this airplane to the gate now. Shut down, will you, so I can disconnect ground power?
Please stop the test and exit maintenance now. Exit maintenance before you lose power. Correct. You finished the interactive MCP system test and found no faults. You have one more job to finish before the airplane is ready. You replaced the left stick shaker actuator. You will do the stall warning system test to test the actuator. Select the stall warning system test. Select the correct ATA. Good. You've selected the correct test. Continue. During the test, you will verify these indications. Print the dialog box now, so you will have a copy of this list when you need it. Use a command button. You have your copy. Continue with the test. Notice the test is inhibited. Before you do anything else, find out why you cannot operate this test. The system is unable to continue the test. You must make sure this condition is also met. Everything looks okay now. Because of the weather, a gust of wind could have caused the airspeed to exceed 30 knots. Try to continue the test. The test condition has changed from inhibited to cannot operate. Where can you find out why? You find out that another mechanic is doing a confidence test in the main equipment center. You will need to wait until she's done.
Go ahead now, I'm done.
Finish the stall warning system test now. The test passed. Since both stick shaker actuators operated, both are okay. You completed ground tests where you stopped the test and where other conditions prevented the test from operating. Next, you will use the System Configuration menu item. During the previous test, the warning electronic unit provided test indications. Let's make sure that this LRU is in the correct configuration. Configuration is often checked during a quick turnaround. Before you select an ATA system, try these buttons. Then use the green arrow to continue. This display helps you select an ATA for system configuration. Go back returns you to the previous display. Follow the instructions on the mat to see configuration information for the warning electronic unit. Does the warning electronic unit have the correct configuration? Yes. Now that you made sure that the mat shows the correct configuration, try these buttons. Then select the green arrow to continue. This dialog box shows again, and you can select a new ATA. You can send the configuration information to a printer, disk drive, or ground station. Help information for the configuration display shows here if your airline has entered it. If you wanted to return to the ground test that you finished, what would you do? When you select Go Back, you return to where you were before. In this lesson, you used mat controls and saw different kinds of displays as you completed ground tests. You also looked at how the mat shows configuration information. Exit the Central Maintenance Computing System now to complete this lesson. Very good.